Welcome to a Ferrari Fixed Lap Guide. This week we're at Rudskogen, which has a ton of elevation change and lots of long duration corners that link together. So it's critical that we're absolutely millimeter perfect with not only our line, but also our brake, throttle, and steering inputs. So let me walk you through a lap and show you how to put together a 119.5 around Rudskogen. Coming across the line to start our fast lap as we hustle into the tricky turn 1-2 complex. We're going to cut the first apex as much as possible and then try to rotate the car as much as possible through the second apex so we can get on the throttle early and get a great exit onto the long straight. We're going to be braking hard just after the 100 board in front of us. But I noticed that every time I saw the blue ABS lights flashing on my dashboard, I had less grip through the first apex. So this lap, I really focused on braking hard, but not hard enough to activate the ABS on the initial application. So it's a hard brake, but only to about 90% brake pressure. We're going to downshift all the way into first gear and try to cut this first apex as much as possible so we can carry a ton of speed into the next section. We're going to get back hard on the throttle, but then immediately peel off because we want to rotate the car as much as possible through the second apex so we can get on the throttle early and carry a ton of speed onto the long straight. So just about here, I'm getting back to throttle hard, but being careful because if we go slightly too far to the left there, the car will start to oversteer and will lose speed all the way down the straight. But we're now coming into another very challenging sequence of corners. It's a double apex right-hander where we're playing with the brake pedal the whole way through both corners, trying to carry as much speed as possible and not over-rotate the car and cause it to spin or under-rotate and cause it to understeer. So we're going to set up for the first corner by moving the car as far over to the left as we can. And then right about here, I'm lifting off and just dabbing the brakes to about 30% brake pressure. And I always make sure to drop it down into third gear before the first apex, because whenever I kept it in fourth gear, I would just carry slightly too much speed into the second apex, which would cause me to understeer. So we're slightly peeling off the brakes, but we're now applying the brakes slightly harder as we come through that first apex, but being really gentle with the car because it just always wants to understeer through the second part of the corner. Carrying that trail brake all the way into about here, and then we're getting back to throttle, but as we come over this crest, the car always gets a little bit light, and we get a little bit of oversteer, so you have to correct just there. We don't lose too much time, and we're immediately hustling the car back to the right-hand side because we have a challenging sequence of interconnecting corners. We're going to try to carry as much speed as possible through this first left and right-hander before heading into a very challenging double apex left-hander. And we want to get a really late second apex so we can carry a ton of speed onto the next straight. So I'm hustling the car back to the right-hand side, turning in early before the curbing starts on the right-hand side, and then lifting off just after turn-in to help bring the nose of the car into this first apex, which we're cutting as much as possible using all the green curbing on the left-hand side, and then immediately turning to the right for this next right-hander, again using all of the curbing on the right-hand side to set ourselves up for this really challenging double apex left-hander. I'm going to be lightly braking just as we hit this white line in front of us, and then trying to cut that first apex as much as possible. So it's a light jab of the brakes. You can see that only to about 10% pressure, just trying to roll speed and rotate the car through this corner. And I'm trying to cut that first apex as I drop it down into first gear, but I miss it by about half a car's width. That'll cost us about half a tenth a second through the apex. And we're trail braking all the way to about here, and then starting to think about getting back to throttle. But we want to apex really late in this corner, just at the end of this curbing on the left-hand side. Getting hard on the throttle, but as we come over this crest, we're going to lose some grip, have to make a little correction there on the exit. We are through there cleanly, coming into, I'm going to sound like a broken record, a really challenging corner. It always feels like I'm over-slowing this apex, but it's really important that you do slow down properly because it's so easy to understeer and lose a ton of time. We're going to be braking just at the end of this red and white barrier on the left-hand side. But just like turn 1, I'm making sure to brake hard, but not hard enough to see those blue lights flashing on my dashboard. So it's a hard brake, but again, no ABS blue lights. We're not losing any grip coming into this corner, but we're really focusing on trail braking all the way to about here. Again, it feels really slow, but but I promise it's faster than understeering all the way through here. And we're aiming to apex just at the end of this curbing on the right-hand side. But right about here, we're getting hard back to power, a little kick of oversteer on the exit as we track out all the way to the left-hand side, but we're immediately hustling the car back to the right, setting up a really awkward left-hander. Always feels like the car wants to understeer through this left-hander, so it's really important that you trail brake all the way through the apex. Just as we come over this crest, I'm going to be applying the brakes, only to about 50% pressure though, but I'm really focusing on carrying lots of brake pressure all the way into the apex and past the apex. But then as we get past the apex, again, hard back to throttle, a little kick of oversteer as usual, and we're coming in to the final 2 corners on the lap. It's just a lift through this first left-hander, but it leads us into another double apex, long duration right-hander, where the exit is absolutely critical because it leads us onto the front straight. Through this left-hander, we're just going to be lifting off the throttle slightly after turn-in. So we turn in right about here, and then lift off, only to about 50% pressure though, before we slowly start feeding a little bit of throttle back in. But then we set ourselves up to hit the brakes right about here for this final long duration right-hander. We're trying to clip our right side tires just inside this white line, and that'll be our first apex. And then we're going to drift wide and try to carry as much speed as possible through the mid-corner. But right about here, I'm starting to get back to throttle and trying to focus on getting as good an exit as possible. So I upshift early into second gear to give me a little bit more traction, and I'm focusing at the end of this curbing because that's my second apex. And through that second apex, we are hard on the throttle. Second gear, third gear, the car is squirming as we're asking for more grip than it can give us. But we come across the line to set a 1:19.531. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you all. I really appreciate all the support. I hope you guys have a great week of racing, and I will see you guys next time.